We're saying that. And our distinguished whip, Mr. Clyburn, talked about the three legs of the stool, the rescue package, the BIF, and now this bill being the infrastructure of our future. And, of course, our distinguished chair of the Ways and Means Committee who held down the fort for such a long time.
So, everybody, did you know that there is an actual way for you to get stimulus cash this year? And did you know that you can receive a Social Security boost? Now, if you want to stay tuned for the most up-to-date and reliable stimulus check Social Security news, then continue watching this video to find out the latest stimulus information.
Clean up the environment, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate your being here. I really mean it. And I'm just going to make a few brief comments and then ask a couple questions. Unfortunately, I have to go, not immediately, but before we finish, and I want to apologize ahead of time. But thank you for being here. I'm afraid, as I said, I won't be able to stay, but I wanted to come by to thank the utility sector CEOs for being here.
This tax season can help people. Can help give many low and middle income families access to more generous tax credits. This is thanks to changes that have been put in place through the American Rescue Plan. But everybody, the important thing to remember is that you have to file a tax return to receive this relief money. That may be a challenge for individuals who don't typically file. There is much more relief money on the table for people that are experiencing financial difficulties through new tax benefits this tax season. The 2021 Earned Income Tax Credit for workers without dependents has been increased to $1,500, up from $538 in 2020. The credit is also now available to eligible workers who are at least 19 years old, or 18 years old if they are homeless, and those also that are ages 65 and up. So it's available to filers in the AGI below $21,430 if you're single and childless in 2021, or $27,830 if you have no dependents and are married and filing jointly. But so far, the child tax credit has also been increased for the 2021 tax year to $3,600 per child ages 5 and under, and $3,000 per child ages 6 through 17, up from $2,000 per child. Parents must fall under certain income thresholds in order to receive this full credit, and those are also the thresholds of $150,000 if you're married and filing jointly. In addition, everybody, the Child Independent Care Tax Credit was also made more generous for 2021. Those who are eligible can claim up to $8,000 in expenses for one child or dependent, and up from $3,000 in previous years, or up to $16,000 for two or more dependents, up from $6,000. The IRS has also just reported that it has issued more than 4 million tax refunds for the 2022 tax season. Average refunds were around $2,200, and the IRS expects to get 160 million individual returns this filing season for the 2021 tax year. And according to Forbes, if you look at the statistics from last year's filing season, refunds were averaging around $2,880 for nearly 30 million processed returns. One reason for the higher number of returns early last year was because last year's filing season started 2 weeks late, giving taxpayers more time to be ready at the start of tax season. One reason for the lower dollar amount of refunds so far this year is that most families with children got advanced child tax credit payments in the second half of 2021. Most of that money was simply in advance. For most taxpayers, the due date to file and pay is Monday, April 18th, not a typical April 15th. And everybody, during a press conference, the IRS commissioner said there was no intention to extend the April 18th deadline, as was done in the past 2 crisis years. So Reddick told reporters it's all on the hands deck. It's a hands-on-deck approach to get people the help they need. This is the most important stimulus check information that I want you to know. So continue watching this video to find out the latest stimulus check information. Now, the deadline to claim extra stimulus money is coming up very soon, and millions of people could actually miss out on financial aid if they do not take action before this deadline. There's still some time to claim unpaid stimulus money, even from last year, even if it's the first time you've ever filed your tax return. Taxpayers that did not receive all of the stimulus funds distributed last year can claim up to $1,400 by filing the 2021 tax return. And last, everybody, millions of people could claim crisis relief stimulus money due to Joe Biden's American Rescue Plan, whether through a standard stimulus check or through the child tax credit. Both the stimulus checks and the child tax credits were fully refundable, meaning that people who don't owe any taxes were eligible to claim the money. However, many lower income residents may not have claimed the stimulus funds if they had not filed or paid taxes recently, because the IRS was responsible for distributing it based on the past tax returns. And it's not always necessary to file a return depending on your income, filing status, and your age. For instance, if you're under the age of 65 and you make less than $12,000, you don't have to file a tax return. Even if you fall into the category of not needing to file, you should still consider your 2021 tax return so that you can receive all the money that you're owed through the recovery rebate credit. And according to a recent IRS statement, if you're eligible and either didn't receive the full amount of the third economic impact payment, or if you think you qualify for a recovery rebate credit that is more than the third amount of the EIP checks, then you need to file a 2021 tax return to claim the recovery rebate credit, even if you otherwise are not required to file a tax return. And the IRS created an option for
The Republican leader.
Moments ago, the country got yet another terrible monthly inflation report under the Biden administration. Yet again, the data confirm what working families already know painfully well. Rampant inflation and soaring prices are crushing the American people. Experts had predicted another red-hot inflation report, around 7%. Even that alone would have meant we were still trapped inside the worst inflation in 40 years. But reality turned out to be even worse than that. Turns out inflation this past year hasn't been 7%, it's been 7.5%. In other words, if you haven't personally gotten a pay raise of 8% or more in the last year, then Democrats' policies have given you a pay cut. To add insult to injury, reporters say the worst of this inflation was driven by the most painful categories for working families: food prices, energy prices, and rent. This is not about financial inconvenience for wealthy people who can afford to stomach it. This is about massive price increases for essential goods that make up a huge share of working families' budgets. Gas is up about 40% since this time last year. Used car prices are up about the same. Meat, fish, and eggs cost over 12% more than they did just 1 year ago. The cost of natural gas for home heating has soared by 24% since this time last year. Fuel oil has shot up almost 47%. The cost of essentials has absolutely exploded since Washington Democrats took power. And to be clear, the worst inflation in 40 years is not something that just spontaneously happened to Democrats on their watch. As a Pew report demonstrated late last year, it's